Hi friends, good morning. Welcome to Shankaran IA Study Circle. This is Dr. Harinath Reddy, Director of the Institute. Today in this particular video, we will try to discuss about the differences between the states and the union territories in India. Article 1 of the Indian Constitution speaks about three kinds of territories: states, union territories and acquired territories. As of now in India we don't have acquired territories, and the territories in India were broadly classified into two, the states and the union territories. So what are the differences between the states and union territories in several dimensions that we will discuss in this particular video. So the relationship between the states with the union government is federal. The relationship of the states with the union government is federal. So we know the definition of a federal constitution. What is a federal constitution? A federal constitution is one which provides for the division of powers between the national and regional governments. Indian constitution is federal because 7th schedule of the Indian constitution provides for the division of powers between the center and the states in the form of three lists. 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution provides for the division of powers between the center and the states, between the parliament and the state legislatures in the form of three lists. 7th schedule. List 1. List 1 it is called union list. List 2 is called a state list. List 3 is concurrent list. List 3 is concurrent list. With respect to all the subjects in the union list, with respect to all the items in the union list, the center is supreme, parliament is supreme. There are 98 items in the union list. Parliament is supreme, sovereign with respect to the items in the union list. Similarly, list 2, state list. With respect to all the items in the state list, states are supreme, except in certain compelling situations, Parliament cannot make a law on a subject which is given to the states. For example, what are the exceptional situations? When national emergency is in operation, when the state emergency is in operation, then Parliament can make laws on all these subjects in the state list. This is during emergency, not in normal times. Even in normal times, there are very few occasions wherein the Parliament can make laws on the subjects in the state list. For example, on the request of two or more states, Parliament can make a law on a subject in the state list. For implementing an international agreement, Parliament can make a law on a subject in the state list. If Rajya Sabha passes a resolution by 2/3 of the members present and voting that it is necessary in national interest to make a law on a subject in the state list, then the Parliament can make a law. Excepting these situations, in all the remaining situations, it is the state legislature which is sovereign, supreme with respect to the subjects in the state list. So this is the relationship between the states and the union government. So Parliament cannot ordinarily make a law on a subject in the state list. Only in certain compelling situations Parliament can make law, otherwise no. Who is empowered? It is the state legislature which is supreme or sovereign to make laws on the subjects in the state list. So this is the relationship between the state and the union government. This is called a federal relationship. But when it comes to union territories, UTs are again broadly categorized into UTs with a legislative assembly, UTs without a legislative assembly. So here we have J&K, Puducherry, Delhi are the examples. And in the remaining union territories, so other than Jammu and Kashmir, Delhi and Puducherry, in the remaining union territories there is no legislative assembly. So with respect to all the items in the 7th schedule, Parliament is a supreme to make laws. In other words, with respect to Andaman and Nicobar Islands, with respect to Lakshadweep, with respect to Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu, with respect to Chandigarh, Parliament. So Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, Chandigarh, Ladakh. So these are the 5 union territories which do not have a legislative assembly. So with respect to all these 5 union territories, Parliament can make laws on the subjects in the union list, Parliament can make laws on the subjects in the concurrent list, Parliament can make laws even on the subjects in the state list with respect to these 5 union territories without a legislative assembly. So this is called unitary relationship. So the Parliament is supreme, sovereign with respect to all the items in all the 3 lists. Even when it comes to the UTs with the legislative assembly, like Jammu and Kashmir, Puducherry and Delhi. So in Puducherry, in Delhi, in Jammu and Kashmir, there is a provision for legislative assembly. The legislative assembly can make laws with respect to the subjects in the state list as well as in the concurrent list. But it is not the exclusive power of the state legislative assembly. Even the Parliament can also make laws. Along with the legislative assembly, Parliament can also make laws on the subjects in the state list as well as in the concurrent list. In case there is a conflict between the law made by the Parliament and the law made by the state legislative assembly in the UTs with the legislative assembly, the law made by the Parliament will prevail. It will have precedence. So here again, there is supremacy of the Parliament. So in Jammu and Kashmir, in Delhi, in Puducherry, though they have a legislative assembly, though the legislative assembly can make laws on the subjects in the state list as well as in the concurrent list, along with the legislative assembly, Parliament can also make laws with respect to the items in the state list as well as in the concurrent list, concurrently, jointly with the state legislative assembly. So in other words, state list is not the exclusive area for the legislative assemblies in Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir, because Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir, they are not full-fledged states. They continue to be union territories, but the difference is they are UTs with a legislative assembly and elected council of ministers. That is the relationship between the states with the union on one hand, the UTs with the union on the other hand. So this is the first difference. In addition to this, as I told you, states enjoy a federal relationship. States enjoy a federal relationship with the central government, and here the executive powers, legislative powers and financial powers, they are divided between the center and the states. States are supreme with respect to the subjects assigned to them. So this is how the states are related to the central government. Then, in the case of union territories without legislatures, there is no division of powers. Union territories without legislatures have unitary relationship with the central government, which means all the legislative and executive powers, including the financial powers, they rest with the union government. And even in the union territories with a legislative assembly and the elected council of ministers, Parliament and legislative assembly will have concurrent powers of legislation. This I have already told. Then, if you take the state, the constitutional head of the state is governor. So the constitutional head of the state is called governor. India had parliamentary democracy both at the union level and also at the state level. So in all the states, in all the 28 states, there is dual executive, nominal executive, real executive. So the governor is the head of the state, but a chief minister is the head of the government. The governor enjoys nominal powers. The chief minister heading the council of ministers enjoys the real powers. But in the 5 union territories without a legislative assembly, without an elected council of ministers, it is the union government which exercises the supreme powers. Even in the states with legislative assembly and elected council of ministers, the administrative head of the UTs with the legislature, they are known by the name lieutenant governor. Lieutenant governor. And the lieutenant governor is not the executive head of the states. Lieutenant governor is not the executive head of the UTs with a legislative assembly. It is the president who is the executive head of the UTs with the legislative assembly. This is the second difference. In addition to this, usually states are much larger in size when compared to the union territories. Usually union territories are much smaller in size when compared to the states. States have autonomous powers. I told, with respect to all the items in the state list, states are supreme. Parliament cannot enter into the areas of the state list except in certain compelling situations. But union territories do not have this autonomous power. Even the UTs with a legislative assembly, they do not have exclusive powers on which they can make laws. Parliament will have concurrent jurisdiction. Then the states, usually all the states are represented in the upper house, that is Rajya Sabha. In India we had 28 states. All the 28 states have representation in Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house. Of course, the representation is unequal. It is not equal like in America, in the American Senate. But all the UTs do not have representation in Rajya Sabha. Only those UTs which have a legislative assembly have representation in the upper house, that is Rajya Sabha. Then what are the UTs with legislative assembly? Jammu and Kashmir, Puducherry and Delhi are the only 3 union territories out of 8 which have representation in the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper chamber. And the union territories, they do not enjoy the statehood, complete statehood. They enjoy only partial statehood. Since they enjoy a partial statehood like status, they have their own legislative assemblies. Union territories like Delhi, Puducherry and Jammu and Kashmir do not operate in the same way as the other 5 union territories in India do. So here again there are differences. Some UTs do not have legislative assembly. Some UTs have legislative assembly. Whether having legislative assembly or not, it is the union government and the Indian Parliament which has overriding powers compared to the governments of the UT. So that's it about the differences between the states and the union territories under the Indian Constitution. Thank you.